Okay, so we are on Facebook Live now. Good afternoon, Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Warmly welcome to AVI-SDG Dialogue. I'm Charya, Deputy Director of the Center for Sustainable Development Study of Asian Vision Institute. It is indeed my great honor to be a moderator for the program today. Today, we brought back an interesting topic on food security and poverty amid COVID-19 to be our first panel discussion as our promise last time. Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today's program, we are honored to have prominent leader and researcher from development field be our speaker. Before starting our program, please allow me to introduce our honorable speaker joining our program today. Please allow me to introduce our first honorable speaker, Excellency Potsawandi from Ministry of Planning. Excellency Potsawandi started working in Ministry of Planning in early 1994. He is involved in preparation process of National Development Plan and its monitoring and evaluation. He is assisting in cooperation with Line Ministry of the government in preparing new national strategic development plan and also is the focal point of SDG localization into national context, Cambodia SDG framework, formalization, mainstreaming Cambodia SDG into national plan system, and MNE, the achievement of Cambodia SDG. He is a member of National Working Group on MNE, the national plan implementation. The current work is assisting to cooperate with government agencies, DP, CSO, private sector, and other stakeholders in preparing midterm review 2021 of National Strategic Development Plan 2019 to 2023 and update Cambodia SDG target and indicators. In addition, Mr. Potsawandi also involved with poverty measurement in Cambodia based on data gathering via Cambodia Social Economic Survey. From 2008, Excellency Mr. Potsawandi is promoted as Deputy Director General of Planning, Ministry of Planning. Besides the above-said person, he was also promoted as an advisor of the Ministry in January 2015. Excellency Mr. Potsawandi graduated his master's degree on population study from Australian University, Australia in 2002 and hold a bachelor degree on economics from the local university in 1993. Second, please welcome our honorable speaker, Mr. Arun Wai. Mr. Arun Wai is an international development consultant with nearly 15 years of experience in data-related projects within the food security and nutrition sector. He is currently the team lead for World Food Programme Cambodia Vulnerability Analysis and Mapping Unit, where he oversees a range of technical projects, including regular market-wide monitoring, remote sensing, and bespoke disaster management applications. And the third, please give a big applause to Honorable Speaker, Dr. Indrozal from Food and Agriculture Organization in Cambodia. Dr. Indrozal is a Senior Policy Officer for the EU FAO First Program in Cambodia. In this role, he supports the Royal Government of Cambodia in food security and nutrition and sustainable agriculture. He has previously worked for FAO Cambodia for over 10 years as advisor in resilient farming system, coordinate for the first Center of Agriculture, manager for the Malis project for improving food security and market linkage for smallholder, and as a program advisor for FAO EU Food Security Facility Project. Before coming to FAO, he worked for 25 years for the University of Queensland as a senior lecturer in agri-food system. During this period, he worked on numerous development projects in long and short-term roles in education, agriculture, forestry, and fishery sector in the Asia-Pacific region. His role has included team leadership, monitoring and evaluation, project design, and specialist role in agribusiness, extension, and social economy. He has a strong interest in system approach and interdisciplinary work in dealing with complex development problems. He has a PhD in natural and rural system management, a Master of Agricultural Study, and a Bachelor of Science from the University of Finland. The last but not least, please give a warmly welcome to our honorable speaker, Dr. Chen Kumlong from Asian Vision Institute. Dr. Chen Kumlong holds a PhD in economics from Australian National University, a Master in economics from Kobe University, and a Master in business administration from the Preston University. Dr. Chen Kumlong, the Director of the Center for Governance, Innovation and Democracy and Vice President of the Asian Vision Institute. He is a member of the Advisory Council at National Assembly of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Prior to that, he was research assistant for Indonesian project at the ANU, senior researcher at Center for Policy Study, economic research at the General Secretariat of the Committee for Economic and Finance Policy at Ministry of Economic and Finance. Research consultant at Cambodia Development Research Institute, economic commercial specialist at United States Embassy, social economy for rural development project and program assistant in charge of economic and private sector development at Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. He had over 15 years of practical experience in quantitative and qualitative research and consultancy for local research, think tank, and international development agencies. He has read and researched on key areas of Cambodia economy, including agriculture, trade, investment, financial sector, garment and footwear industry, oil and gas sector, and real estate sector. Dr. Chen Kumlong had over 12 years of experience in teaching undergraduate and graduate course at various universities in Cambodia. Excellency, Honorable Speaker, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, follow our agenda today. We will start our captivating program with the first agenda on food security and poverty in Cambodia, which will convey the speech by Dr. Chen Kumlong. Second will be on food security and poverty statistics in Cambodia. The speech will be delivered by Excellency Pochwandi. Third, on World Food Program support for food security in Cambodia will be given a speech by Aaron Bai. And the fourth, on food and agriculture organization support for poverty reduction in Cambodia, delivered by Dr. Indozel. And for the last agenda, we will open the floor for joint discussion. Then we will have a group photo session with all our honorable speakers at the end of the program. So if you wish to have any question, you can drop your question in Zoom or Facebook Live. We will deliver your question to our honorable speaker when the discussion is open. So to begin our program, please allow me to invite our honorable speaker from AVI, Dr. Chen Kumlong, to deliver his speech. Dr. Chen Kumlong, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chaya and the Center for Sustainable Development Studies at the Asian Vision Institute for inviting me and for hosting this very important dialogue we call the AVI-SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals dialogue, which is very important, not at the time, most importantly at the time being, given the fact that the world is being troubled, is being ravaged by COVID-19 pandemic, causing many more millions of people into poverty, facing more severe food insecurity. I think today we have a very nice group of panelists So I will touch on the very basic information and definition, and bring about the ideas of how we can work together, as a united, as a concerted, a team of people from private sector, from civil society organizations, from the government, in order to help not only Cambodia, but other countries in the region, other countries in the world, in which peoples are facing severe and extreme poverty and food insecurity. For Cambodia, before I start with a brief overview of what the situation in Cambodia is with regard to food poverty, food insecurity, I would like to draw the attention of the audience on what is meant by food security. Food security is different but related to food poverty. It is quite different from food poverty in the sense that it has many dimensions to it, and many dimensions to food insecurity or food security, which explain why a lot of strategies and efforts are needed, a lot of investment in food security is needed, rather than on the angle of food poverty. While food poverty may mean a shortage of, or a lack of, access to food alone, food insecurity involves at least 4 dimensions. From FAO, I think we have Dr. Russell here. He will explain in more detail. We have the first one is a food availability. Yeah. And then we have the food access. The third dimension would be about utilization of food. Utilization in terms of fulfill the requirement of a healthy, of an active social, cultural, economic life of a person. And the fourth dimension of it, according to FAO, is the stability of food and the stability of food system itself. Stability of food system also involves pricing, as we have seen in the past. So this is the 4 basic dimensions that have been used widely and have been adopted and by FAO and by other international organizations. By looking at the first dimension of it, we talk about the food availability. This is the supply side of food security. It is about whether food can be made available to all, not only just food. Food security in this global context, whether it is regard to individual food insecurity, whether it is regard to household food insecurity, whether it is is about community food insecurity, or a national security and global security, global food insecurity. Whichever level of food insecurity we talk about the supply side dimension, which is about whether we make food available, the nutritious, healthy food for fulfilling the needs of people, from young to old, according to their bodily requirement of energy, to sustain a healthy lifestyle and to engage economically and meaningfully in their daily life. So the second dimension, we talk about the food access. Food access here is about the demand side of food insecurity. It is about whether individual person will be able to access the food or to acquire food for consumption. Utilization is a very important dimension of food insecurity that I think the government, the donor organization, the private sectors, and people should pay more attention to utilization. Food sometimes is available, food is accessible, but the the inefficient use, of food in order to sustain, to meet those basic dietary and calorie intakes need for a person to remain healthy and active economically, socially, culturally, has very strong impact on how a society, how a family, a household, how an individual person achieve the goal of, we call it food security. It is important dimension that we have to, I think from now on, private sector may also involve, government may need to involve, to invest in how to improve the utilization aspect. Access, of course, we have been talking a lot. Availability, we have been talking about a lot, but utilization area or utilization dimension has a lot more to be improved, to be enhanced. And finally, is about the food stability, the stability of food system, which I believe that it should also involve in how food prices are managed, how food sources are governed in a sustainable, in an inclusive, equitable way, so that food will be ensured, food security will be achieved, not only just for a short period of time, but it is for a longer period of time for human to enjoy and to sustain their living standards. With regard to these 4 dimensions, I would like to bring to attention to the evolving impact, the evolving dimensions of global challenges. The first of which is the COVID-19. COVID-19, since it started to rock the world in the early 2020, has posed a tremendous people on almost every society in the world. No society has appeared to be, immune to global COVID-19. In that way, we have seen that for Cambodia, before the start of COVID-19, we see poverty level in Cambodia was below 10%. It was around 9%. But a year later, we have seen that poverty level in Cambodia has more than doubled. Last year, it was about, it increased from around 9%. I guess it's less than 9%. This is a national poverty line, less than 9% to around 17.3 to 17.5%. And then the impact of COVID-19 has continued to, dampen the impact on the living standard of people at a larger scale. People have lost jobs. People have been working in tourism sector, government sector. People who have micro family business have lost a job, or at least they have lost their incomes. And that had been translated into the rising poverty level in the country. The combination of the threat from COVID-19, the rising intensity and severity of poverty in Cambodia require us to probably to reformulate, to revisit how we define food security, to revisit how we strategize a joint efforts, a strategy, a plan in order to cope with food insecurity. I think the 4 dimensions I mentioned about that have been developed by, that agreed and have been used widely by FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organizations, are the standard definition, are the standard dimensions we can refer to. But in addition to that, we can also refer to other dimensions that have not been discussed or understood widely enough. That is about the food safety and food standard dimension. Second is about food affordability dimension. I think maybe we can redefine, we can readjust the definition slightly within the Cambodian context. First, I think we cannot overgeneralize to the global context, but I would like to suggest that we add these two dimensions into how we frame and reframe our strategy, and also how we reformulate other action plan to cope with COVID-19 impact on food insecurity and poverty in Cambodia. I will not touch on more detail than this, and I will give the floor to our panelists to touch on, and I will provide more during the question and answer. So I think I will give the floor back to the moderator. But before that, I have to emphasize that again, that food support, provided by the government may not be able to sustain their lifestyle, their living standard for a long time. Food support by the government, while it is necessary, will not be able to remove people, to lift people out of poverty and out of the challenges they face in terms of food insecurity. So in this regard, regarding to the overall 4 dimensions plus extra 2 dimensions I mentioned about, is about affordability and food safety and standards into the 4 dimensions have been used by the FAO. We may need, I refer again, the investment by the government in livelihood, in skill development for people to be able to be employed, re-employed, or to move around in the social mobility scale in the country. People should be, rural, in the rural area, in the city, in the urban, wherever, the area of skill development, the area of, providing training to people, whether it is life skill, whether it is education, in order for those people to employ themselves, to be self-employed, or to be employed elsewhere, to sustain income, and also, to secure sources of income for their dependents will be very important. Along that line, the sustainable and inclusive governance of natural resources. Natural resources I refer to land, to water, to other resources on land and under land, have to be properly managed, properly governed, and so that people will enjoy, will benefit from all of those. Yeah. And with regard to agriculture, that everyone have been talking about, agriculture could provide the potential, or could have the greatest potential to reduce poverty and food insecurity. I agree somehow, but agricultural or reliant on agriculture alone will not be able to lift people out of poverty and to make people more food secure in a very inclusive and sustainable way. I end my talk here, and the floor is your Chaya. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Cheng Kamlong, for your nice introduction on the food security in Cambodia. And this will be a good start for our discussion later. So next, I would like to invite our honorable speaker from Ministry of Planning, Excellency Potswandi, to convey his remarks. His Excellency, please, the floor is yours. Hello, Excellency. May you unmute your microphone, please?
Dr. Jane Kumlong, Vice President of AVI, Mr. Aaron Weiss, Vulnerability Analysis WIP, Mr. Lin Russell, Senior Policy Officer, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Asian Vision Institute to provide me a chance to speak a topic related to the nutrition and poverty Cambodia and also the effect of COVID on it. Let me start my slide presentation. Can you would like me to show the slide presentation or just talk?
Yeah, Excellency, maybe you can share your presentation as well.
Okay. Slow. No, I will close the camera because of look like very slow. Oh, you see a slide?
Excellency, I think maybe you can reshare again and select the file that you want to share because now you open your folder. We cannot see any slideshow yet.
No, I can't open it. Maybe caused by internet slow.
Because now we can see your folder share, but we cannot see the slide. So I please suggest that you can reshare your slides better. Thank you.
Reshare?
Yeah, reshare again. Okay, so we can see well now. Thank you, Excellency.
See now? You can see now?
Yeah, I can see the slide.
I cannot see mine.
You didn't see on your screen?
Yeah.
I think maybe because of the internet. So now we can see well.
No, the slide or just text?
I think you saw on the text that welcome all the speakers here.
That not the one I would like to show.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the internet slow.
Okay, maybe you can
Just
verbally.
okay.
Okay, if cannot share the presentation, it's fine. Maybe you can verbally show us what you're going to give in presentation. That's fine.
Okay. No, I will talk 6 points. I would like to talk 6, but very short 6 points we would like to show. First is provide the short situation of the nutrition in Cambodia, secondary policy and strategy in place related to nutrition. Then the relationship between the nutrition and poverty. After that, we will see the effect of COVID-19 on poverty and nutrition. And after that, the integration of Royal Government of Cambodia to the affected people. And the last one is I will provide a short conclusion. Now, first, related to the nutrition in Cambodia, I just would like to provide the information, but the information is old due to the nutrition is based on the Cambodian Demography and Health Survey since 1914. I have only three points related to the stand among the under 5 children. That is the 32 in 2014. That was dropped from 43% in 2005 and dropped to 14% in 2010. Anyway, the rate is still high. The second one is the anemia caused by iron deficiency among the under 5 children is 56%. And among the fertilized women group is 45% in 2014. The zinc deficiency among the fertilized women is 60% in 2014. Apologize again for we have only that old data, and based on the Cambodian Demographic Health Survey. Right now, we don't have a new one. I think that maybe the WIP or FAO can provide more current information. The second, related to policy and strategy related to nutrition. Enhance of nutrition of Cambodia population is also the priority policy in the Royal Government of Cambodia. There is include the electrical strategy phase 3 in Recting Goal 4 and Goal 2, and also right now the current electrical strategy phase 4 is in Recting Goal 1 and Goal 3. The nutrition also placed in National Strategic Development Plan 2019-2023, Chapter 4, Subtitle 3.3. And also the Cambodian Sustainable Development Goal 2016-2013 in two goals, Goal 1 and Goal 3. All that goal is related to nutrition, even direct and indirect. And the last one is National Strategy for Food Security and Nutrition 2019-2023 that are produced by Council for Agriculture and Rural Development. The Ministry of Planning is chaired the National Council for National Nutrition, Ministry of Planning. Was member of Land Ministry implement the program for incorporate micronutrient in food, ironage in fish and soy sauce program, and also the soil iodization program. The other member and also the Land Ministry also has implemented different program and contribute to by sector to handle the nutrition in Cambodia population. The third one is the relation between the nutrition and poverty. The relation between the nutrition and poverty you can see directly. Normally, by most of malnutrition occur among the hunger and poor who not have enough food. We not talking about the access, the people, the food have, but another side we talking directly that the people don't have food to provide daily living. Of course, we cannot talk about people who have enough food, but face some malnutrition, maybe the food not have enough, not have good enough regard or have enough of vitamin. That's why the royal government of Cambodia more taking account into poor and vulnerable group. Now, according to the poverty rate in 2014, there was the 13.5 based on the Cambodian socio-economic survey 2014. Now, I just heard Dr. Jane Kumlong provide information about the poverty around 9% and increase to double, more than double. But this is only the not the official data one. Of course, we are working. I'm also the member of the poverty measurement, national poverty measurement, and we are working with Ministry, also working with the Ministry of Economic Finance. We try to calculate and try to review the methodology to calculate poverty rate, but the results still an official, but waiting for the approval from the government, from management and from the government. Beside the poverty, we calculate from the Cambodian socio-economic survey, the royal government of Cambodia, through Ministry of Planning, also conduct the ID4 program to identify poor family. According to the program, the government can find out which are the poor family. We divide to where they are living, where and how many families are poor in each village, each commune, each district, city, and each province. Royal government of Cambodia used the result of the program for urgent intervention, and social support to the family. Royal government of Cambodia also created a National Social Protection Council that responsible for take action to help and social support to poor family. There are around 500,000 families with around 2 million people have identified as poor. But this data is before COVID-19 pandemic. No. We all know, also Jane Kumlong also provide some data about the COVID-19, that the pandemic in Cambodia in early 2020, the pandemic on global and also on Cambodia economic. Many people, family, all lost their income and become poor and face difficulty in living standard. According to the ID4 program, the poor family increased to 662,700. No, again, 662,767 family worth 2,617,214 people. So compared to the previous data I just provided, around 162,000 family was around 617,000 people fell under poverty caused by COVID-19. Now, we're talking about the social support of the government to the family affected by the COVID-19. To support the family of people, Royal Government of Cambodia, through Ministry of Economic and Finance, created decision number 020 saw Horwo dated on 13 May 2021 has transferred for support the poor.
Excuse me, Excellency, because there is a bit some noisy sound coming there. So may you check your microphone again, please?
You don't hear it?
Yeah, somehow we hear, but before a moment have some noisy sound. So just check with your microphone. So now we can hear well. Please continue your speech, please.
Okay. The social support focus on family and people living in lockdown area and have difficulty living. Telegram audio. Not focus on family have positive COVID-19 and have difficulty standard living. The family have member dead by COVID-19. Level of support have mentioned in the decision. I don't have time to provide the amount of money support the family. The support also make sure that not double count for the family. So should make sure that one family cannot got full time. In conclusion, I just would like to wrap up what I just mentioned before. Nutrition have much more correlate with living standard of family people. Poverty high, cost nutrition, malnutrition high. COVID-19 affecting on income and living standard of people, and also on malnutrition, on nutrition situation income of people. The government are trying to support in difficult way to family and people, and we hope that by the measures of the government and vaccination campaign in the whole country, the situation in Cambodia will be recovered very soon. Thank you. Yeah, I finished my speech.
Okay, thank you so much, Excellency, for your insightful and valuable remarks. This will help our people or our audience to learn more about current situation of food security in Cambodia, especially during this pandemic either. So next, please turn the floor to our honorable speaker from the World Food Program, Mr. Aranwai. So please, Mr. Aranwai, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Excellencies. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will just give a overview on food security trends, food security and nutrition trends in Cambodia over the last year. So during the time of COVID. And also discuss some of the other ways that WFP is supporting the monitoring of food security in Cambodia, and finally present a couple of things that we're doing in collaboration with the Royal Government of Cambodia on food security and nutrition as well. So again, thank you very much. Just a very brief introduction for those of you who may not know. WFP has been providing support to the government of Cambodia and the people since 1979. Our current strategic plan, which runs 2019 to 2023, aims to complement the government of Cambodia's efforts to achieve zero hunger. We do this through a series of work streams, you might say, and each of these work streams, we are partnering directly with different government line ministries. That includes the National School Feeding Program with the Ministry of Education, working on resilient local food systems. That's also through our homegrown school feeding program with the Ministry of Education, enhancing government capacity and disaster risk management reduction with NCDM, Disaster Management Agency, promoting digital transformation, enhancing food security, nutrition, and social protection governance with various partners, including the Ministry of Social Affairs and the National Social Protection Council, and also support in supply chain services. So just a very quick introduction on WFP in Cambodia and our history here. So I just want to touch on a couple of things. This is an opportune time to highlight some of the information we have, because the UN, in partnership with the National Institute of Statistics, has actually been conducting a series of panel surveys in Cambodia across the country to understand exactly this, the impacts of COVID-19 on a range of socioeconomic indicators, including food security and nutrition. So I'll present some of the findings that we have from those surveys. I'll also touch a bit on WFP's market monitoring system that we run jointly with the Ministry of Agriculture, and then present a few other areas, including our seasonal monitoring and our web application for disaster management. So, as I mentioned, over the last 12 months, WFP, along with several UN partners, as well as the Institute of Statistics at MOP and a third-party service provider, have been conducting a series of surveys in Cambodia to understand the impacts of COVID-19 on households throughout the country. As you can see here, there's been 6 rounds of the survey so far. So there was an initial baseline survey in August of last year, which was conducted in partnership with NIS. Following that, there were 5 additional phone rounds where we followed up with these households through their mobile phones. And so the idea behind the objectives of the surveys were to make sure that there was timely information on the COVID-19 impact on households on a wide range of indicators, to build evidence for social and economic policy responses, and just to inform the government and partners on vulnerabilities and so on. So as you can see, the assessments over the last year have covered all provinces in Cambodia. The sampling was obviously set up in a way that we got more respondents in higher density areas like Phnom Penh and Kandal and so forth. But there you have it. So I'll just jump into some of the findings that we have coming out of this series of assessments over the last year as it relates to food security and nutrition. I will say that the survey covered a whole range of indicators that I won't touch on. That includes issues like education and health and so on. And that information has been presented to a wide range of audiences, Ministry of Economy and Finance, the National Social Protection Council, and others. So everything I'll present here today has also been presented to a wide range of government fora as well. So what we've found as it relates to food security over the last years is that, in fact, household consumption, food consumption was remaining fairly stable through most of last year. However, we did see a deterioration following the October floods and also the November. You'll recall November was the first community transmission of COVID in Cambodia. And so we did see a noticeable deterioration in household food consumption and various food security indicators at that time. We did see a rebound or an improvement in food security indicators at the beginning of this year. I will note that our last round of data collection was in March, and so we have not. We have another round starting in June, but we have not captured any data since the end of March, and so of course we are keen to do another round to learn more about the impacts of the most recent February the 20th outbreak. We only picked up a little bit of that in the March round. Sorry, let me just go back. One thing I wanted to flag is that the data showed, of course, that ID poor households were among the most vulnerable when it comes to food security outcome indicators. We also picked up that small households, so with just 3 or fewer members in the household, as well as households which had a member with disability, were found to be worse off compared to other households. And one of the main ways that COVID has been impacting households, of course, is through the loss of their jobs, the loss of income sources. And so, especially for this issue of small households, we suspect that these households just have fewer income earning opportunities compared to larger households. Larger households might be able to send family members from rural areas to urban areas to earn additional income and send back as remittances, whereas smaller households are not able to do this. So yeah, let me move on. Apart from just the food security issues that we picked up at the end of last year, again, we did see some improvement in those indicators at the beginning of 2021. But we did see a deterioration at the end of the year following the floods and the first outbreak in November. We also saw similar pattern with nutrition indicators. And what I'm showing here is household consumption of vitamin A, protein, and iron-rich foods in the 3 waves that we captured this information. And if you'll see, it's a little bit hard to pick it out there, but certainly in the November-December round at the end of the year, we noticed a marked deterioration in households' ability to consume a nutritious diet as well. And again, we think this is primarily linked to the decrease in, the impacts from the October floods, compounded, of course, by the impacts of COVID as well. Drilling down further, we also picked up similar patterns among the diets of women and children. So as you can see here on the left, we see the diet diversity among women aged 15 to 49 in the household. And we see in August, about 70% of women had reported a diverse diet. And there's an indicator for that. I won't go into the details on that. But then in November, December, we see that drops all the way down to just half of women that we surveyed had a diet that was diverse. And then in March, we see that it has picked up some. So we see this again through household level as well as the individual level indicators. And on the bottom right there is for children under 2 years old. It's a little bit of a strange chart there, but yeah, we do see a deterioration in some sense. So what do families do when there's not enough income or resources to purchase food? They employ a variety of coping strategies, and we've broken down those coping strategies into what we call food-based coping strategies and then livelihood-based coping strategies. So on this slide, you see very clearly the proportion of households who reported resorting to food-based coping strategies. And what we mean by that is they say, we didn't have enough money, so we bought cheaper foods. We bought foods that we prefer not to eat if we had more money. They also are likely to reduce the portion sizes and in some cases reduce the number of meals. So here again, you can see that this food-based coping, which we call, really kind of peaked in that October-November period and then has come down somewhat at the beginning of 2021. And here we can see the same thing in what we call livelihood-based coping strategies. So we ask the same question. What have you done to cope with not having enough, the ability to have enough food? And so what we see here are households in August actually doing pretty good. Almost half reported not using any coping strategy at all. And then you see in October a real big increase in the proportion of households telling us that they had to use some sort of livelihood coping strategy. And that means spending their savings, of course, but other things as well, like taking on high interest debt, having to sell maybe some of their productive assets, selling animals that they may not have wished to sell, that type of thing. So we see that spike quite dramatically in the October-November period last year, with a slight improvement at the beginning of this year. So yeah, as it relates to this survey and what we found over the last 12 months, we have seen the cumulative impacts of COVID have left households less resilient and less able to and more vulnerable to food insecurity. We did note that, of course, the strong fiscal support from government through especially the cash transfer program to ID4 households has played a big role in mitigating these problems even more. And so, I think it's a very important thing to mention that without these cash transfers to poor households, it's likely that we would have seen an even larger deterioration. And so I think a lot of credit is due for that very innovative and strong response from the government of Cambodia in that sense. What I'll also mention is that, like I said, the last bit of data that we collected on this was in March, and really since March and now with some of the lockdowns that have happened in April, we are a little bit concerned as to, especially for households that were not able to access markets during that time. We do know that food security and nutrition tend to track access to markets. Cambodia is a very market-driven economy. A lot of people, especially in urban areas, but also in rural areas, depend on the market almost on a daily basis in some cases. And so we know that if that access to markets are disrupted, that will have an impact on food security and nutrition, especially for poor and vulnerable households. So for the next things coming out of this assessment, we will be having, like I said, these findings have been presented to Ministry of Economy and Finance, and National Social Protection Council, and various other bodies. We plan to have a report coming out of this sometime in June. And then we've also planned to extend this work through the end of 2021. So there'll be actually 3 more rounds of data collection in June, September, and December of this year to continue tracking this situation. I just want to touch on a couple of things that WFP is doing in the food security area, and especially in partnership with the Royal Government of Cambodia. One activity we have, and this is with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and Forestry, is the market price monitoring system. So we've actually had this for quite a long time, and in various levels of support with the Ministry of Agriculture. The most recent iteration of this we set up in 2019, and then during COVID response last year, we actually scaled this up with MAF to 45 markets across the country. And so just some of the things that we collect and report on, again, for example, here we look at this is market access, the number of visitors that traders and market chiefs are reporting in Cambodia. So again, these are sort of elements that give us a more holistic picture of the food security situation in Cambodia. And the same, we produce these reports every month, but we also track, for example, the prices of key commodities and look at the trends over time and provide this information as to development partners in the country. Another thing that WFP is supporting is what we call seasonal monitoring. So this is to look at, for example, the rainfall and drought patterns in Cambodia, and to keep a close eye on this and share this information with our partners. So this is just an example I pulled from a recent presentation we gave at another forum. But for example, you can see on the top is the last 5 months of rainfall conditions in Cambodia, and we've compared it to the bottom there, which is the El Nino drought in 2015 and 16. So this is just another way that we try to support partners and the government in country on food security issues. The last thing I want to mention is our partnership with NCDM.
Excuse me, Mr. Aronwhite. So yes, we are a bit behind the schedule.
Sure.
So please.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Just a very quick one here. This is a map that we produced last year. We operate this with, like I said, the National Disaster Management Agency. This was looking at the floods from October and overlaying that with the ID4 database, and a lot of disaster management partners, including government and PCDMs, really found this type of information quite useful. And finally, what we're working on at the moment is trying to connect and integrate 3 different government information systems, NCDM, ID4, and the Ministry of Social Affairs, to try to link this idea of shock responsive social assistance. So this is a project that we're working on at the moment, and again, linked to improving food security outcomes for households which may be affected by shocks like normally drought and flood, but of course now we have COVID as well. So that's all I have to say. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to present. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I pushed the mute. I'm sorry. So thank you so much, Dr. Aronwhite, for your nice presentation. And the next, please, I would like to invite Dr. Indroza to give presentation. Dr. Indroza, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chadria. Sorry, I think might just have a slight delay in the system to bring my slides up, but I hope that you are seeing them now. The topic that I'm speaking on is to discuss the role of FAO in terms of poverty reduction in Cambodia, and had 4 basic questions to address in developing my presentation. The first of those questions was to ask what progress we're making towards the achievement of SDG 1. And as you might know, SDG 1 relates to eradicating poverty, or at least eradicating extreme poverty, and reducing by half those living with any dimensions of poverty by the national definitions. And as our previous speakers have made clear, it's very difficult. This is a really difficult question to answer because we don't yet have official statistics on which we can base a statement. But we do have some good indications coming in from preliminary work, and a real concern that we may have up to a doubling of the poverty rate as a result of COVID-19. And this is truly alarming given the very good progress that the country was making prior to COVID. So we would have to say that the outlook for 2030 has been severely impacted by COVID. And just how much we will get back on track remains to be seen. certainly Cambodia has an excellent record in terms of economic growth. And that economic growth has led to poverty reduction, and agriculture has made a good contribution to poverty reduction in the past. We would hope to see not just a similar performance, but indeed a strengthened performance from agriculture, because it needs to, in agriculture, we need to lift our game in order to make the contribution to GDP and to catch up with other sectors as we ought to. As Aaron mentioned and others, the royal government have taken significant steps to offset the impacts of COVID-19 on income and poverty. But as has been mentioned, this is not sufficient to lift people out of poverty. It's a means of a safety net for the current situation. And this is a very important understanding. But we should acknowledge that the steps that have been taken by the royal government are themselves a contribution to SDG 1. And they make a contribution to indicators under that SDG. So that is a positive step in itself. And next question we had to address, what are the major challenges for Cambodia in achieving SDG 1 and 2? And I should say that I'll focus my address on SDG 1 and focus on poverty reduction, because Aaron's given us a very nice coverage of the food security nutrition situation. But if we look at those major challenges, from my assessment, I can see that for poverty, one major and very obvious challenge is that of COVID-19 recovery. What we mean by that recovery is the business recovery, recovery from loss of income, and recovery from the restrictions that have jeopardized health access and education. And these are a very important foundation for the future, because for our young people, this is the basis of our demographic dividend. And Cambodia must work very hard not to lose that demographic dividend, which is a one-off spur to growth. Another challenge I see is that we have still a very strong divide between the national and the local level. And this applies in terms of finances, capabilities, and opportunities. So we need to ensure that there's a shift in those capabilities towards the local level. And that is a great challenge. We have declining natural capital, which must be offset by human capital development. And we have increasing household indebtedness, which compounds the economic difficulties that are mentioned above. If we look at the areas that should receive immediate interventions, and I'm speaking mainly in terms of the broad agriculture sector, including agriculture and aquaculture and forestry, fisheries and forestry. And I think that the main interventions that we should focus on in Cambodia are those of commercialization, modernization, and diversification, because this will give agriculture the return on capital, the return on labor that is required for it to be a vibrant and modern sector. We need to emphasize and attract private sector investments in value adding. And to do that, we need to improve the operating environment for business and the enforcement of regulations and standards for basis of international trade. We need to provide vocational training and job opportunities for youth. And we need to protect that natural resource base and biodiversity so that we don't compromise our future and sustainability over the longer term. When I'm saying those things, I'm not forgetting the poor and the need to support them. But in terms of the agriculture sector, what I'm thinking is that we need to separate social protection from agricultural development, because we need expertise in social protection and we need expertise in agriculture. the two things are not the same, and the agriculture sector is not a social protection sector. The ways forward for the key stakeholders to respond, broadly speaking, should include an ability to think multi-sectorally and then to act sectorally. We need to continue to strengthen subnational capabilities and resourcing, and we need to continue to strengthen the councils and committees that operate across sectors for the Royal Government and on a multi-stakeholder basis in bringing the development partners and civil society, private sector into the equation. As I mentioned before, we need to attract private sector investment. We need to protect that demographic dividend by engaging youth, protecting their health, their education, and giving them meaningful opportunities, and including in the rural areas. We need to invest in research, innovation, and development. And this is a key sort of issue for AVI to consider, because it's a good example of how improvements can be made through support from think tanks and independent thinkers. We have limited institutions in Cambodia to promote these ideas and finance and support entrepreneurial activity. So those need support as well. There should be ongoing development of social protection mechanisms. And we've learned so much from the COVID-19 situation and seen many ways in which the government has been able to act in a very comprehensive and commendable manner. For FAO, in addressing poverty reduction, we tend to operate against three main themes. In the middle of the diagram here, we've put sustainable livelihoods, because that's really a central goal. Sustainable livelihoods for farmers, traders, processors, retailers, all of the people involved in the food and agriculture system. To make those livelihoods sustainable, we need to do two things, one on either side, to protect the resource base and to ensure that we provide risk reduction measures. So that's really the span of FAO's activities in terms of poverty reduction. At the moment, we're mainly focused on rural areas and peri-urban, but the urban food production can be significant, and many value chain activities associated with agriculture are based in urban areas, like input suppliers and retail markets and so on. In the current situation, our thoughts are focused on maintaining supply chains for food and protecting livelihoods from COVID-19 impacts. And while we're doing this, we need to be planning for recovery and the future. Agriculture is a crucial sector for economic recovery in Cambodia, and it has been lagging other sectors in terms of productivity in the past. I'd like now just to touch on some areas where FAO invests its technical assistance for the Royal Government and provides other support of a normative nature. And some of these we've touched on already, but we can see the importance of maintaining supply chains. And these need a great deal of improvement in Cambodia. Creating value chains, that means sharing value for consumers. And this is a new way of thinking for Cambodia, although it's not so new on a global basis. And we have some nice examples of value chains operating in this country that we need to expand upon, and other chains can mimic. But although the poor are mostly located in rural areas, we need to stop thinking about farmers as recipients of aid and agriculture as a form of social assistance. It's much better if we start to think about agriculture and aquaculture producers as part of the private sector and promoting their commercial interests. And the MAF are not well suited for delivering social assistance, so we should leave that to in the main to other areas. Agricultural cooperatives, women's groups are important, and so too contract farming. Most of these are in line with the MAF's own objectives. So FAO works closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries and the Ministry of Environment in working on these areas. We need to help provide access to low-cost finance, technical assistance, quality inputs, agricultural services, and produce collection, storage, and marketing. Aaron's already shown us the importance of a digital transformation and how information can be used to improve our decision-making and our policies. And this is critical in a situation like that of a disaster or like that which we're experiencing in COVID-19. We need information now, and we need to make decisions quickly on the basis of sound evidence. And the last point that I'd add in this one is value adding comes through the quality of the produce, its nutritional content and the standard of the produce, through such things as, and can be improved through such things as good agricultural practices and organic standards. But value adding also comes from the qualities of production. And we need to think more about this in Cambodia, about ethical production, consumer supported agriculture, environmentally responsible production, and the use of geographic indications for our produce. One area that is of interest to us in recent times has been improvement of social protection measures, or the use of cash for work and cash for work plus as a way of providing a socio-environmental safety net. And this is a useful idea for communities like community forestry and fishery communities, protected area communities. And it's a means by which the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries can work together with the National Council for Social Protection or under its own direction to target investments for people in need and to ensure that their activities support the protection and sustainable management of natural resources. These are new sorts of ideas, and we are testing them, trialing them in Cambodia, and they appear to have relevance for perhaps for limited areas, but a very useful mechanism. And my last statement is about some normative contributions made by FAO and the importance of these, not just what FAO is doing, but the importance of these generally. One is in terms of the policy and the law, that we need to ensure for poverty reduction that we have the correct policy settings and the laws that will provide for poverty reduction. And just to give some examples of that, it includes health and safety regulations, labour laws, the elimination of child labour, equitable access and rights to resources, and things like the engagement of youth, the empowerment of women, and advocacy for consumer rights. Aaron and His Excellency Savandi have highlighted the importance of data and information. This is really an aspect that FAO pays a lot of attention to, and we can see that there are issues for Cambodia that we need to correct going forward. Although we're able to collect data, we have something of a lack of analysis and use of the data sources in our policy and decision making. So this is a kind of weakness in our research and analysis capabilities generally for Cambodia. And I'd like to finish on the note of stressing the importance of bodies like AVI, the importance of academia, independent institutions, and the policy analysis capabilities of the state itself, because these will be critical to our future and transforming the ways that we work and the mindset that we work under. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Indroza, for your presentation. So we seem to be run out of time, and we are going to join our discussion. So, by the way, in here now we have several questions to point to all the speakers here. So, may I please start the first question? So, the poor are the most vulnerable to food security, and the current food price have severely affected the poor, and the COVID-19 pandemic made even worse. So, what should and can be done to stabilize food market? So, this question, please go to all speakers. But first, let's start with Dr. Cheng Kung Long. Thank you so much.
Could you repeat the last part, please?
Okay. So, what should and can be done to stabilize food market?
Okay, thank you so much. And for the first part of the questions, which group of society have been the most vulnerable given the impact of COVID-19 on their livelihoods, on their poverty level? I think there have been studies, and including the studies by WHP recently. We have seen among people in the informal sector, particularly those who are not in the formal economy, those who have been employed, for example, in the tourism sector, we have seen the tuk-tuk drivers. They are not registered, they are not officially registered in the formal economy. Tourism sector has been hitting Cambodian economy very hard. In 2020, we see that major tourism attractions in Siem Reap, in many other parts of the country have been closed down, leading to the foreclosure and closure of businesses, of tourism services, and then into the reversal of their economic improvement over the past years. The second group of people that have been affected is also involved with those in the manufacturing sector. I think the COVID-19 have impacted global economy, in particularly the global supply chain over for the first 6 months. Later on, the global supply chain have been smoothened slightly by the quick recovery of the Chinese economy. Since then, we have seen Cambodian exports of some manufactured goods have increased from around July to around November. But then, since then, we see, like a greener, more promising prospect for the Cambodian economy to recover. But then, when the wave of COVID-19 impacted the country, starting in November, late November, and then again in February this year, we have seen the closure of business operation, particularly those manufacturing. So the manufacturing industries have been affected, affecting the laborers, the workers in that sector. Another group of people that have been affected is those in agriculture. Agriculture export have declined in many areas, except certain agricultural products. You see, in fact, the food productions increased in the second half of 2020, but later, because of the
Excuse me, Dr. Kum Long, I think maybe internet not going well.
COVID-19 in major sorry, maybe the internet disruption. Let me try to speak a little bit slowly again. The continued disruptions in caused by pandemic in other major export market of Cambodia also affect the agricultural sector in Cambodia. These are the major most vulnerable group of people. You see, other businesses in Cambodia have been operating quite well. I mean, because they, for two things, they have more capital reserve, they have more, to cope with during their time, during this difficult time. But the people in the informal sector, people in the tourism sector, in the construction and the manufacturing sector have been less fortunate in terms of, their capability to cope with COVID-19. Yeah. For the second part of the question, to stabilize food, market in the country. I think this point has also been made by the Russell. How to ensure the food supply chain. The government has been doing quite well in terms of how to ensure the smooth flow of this over the past 2 months. We have seen since COVID-19 have been impacted more severely in this third event, the 20th of February 2021. But how to depends on, more coordination between the producers, the producer of our, agricultural production network in the country. We lack the coordinations in terms of what kind of food, the food varieties are produced in which part of the country, and and then storage, logistical arrangement. All of those have not been be able to improve this transportation, logistic arrangement, and coordination of the demands and production side.
Dr. Kim Long.
Linking to that is also the quality in Cambodia without the support of the local buyers. Yeah. I end my talk here. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt because the internet was a bit problem and sometimes it's disconnect. Okay, so maybe I can turn this question to Dr. Indrozel.
Well, thank you, Charya. And I just make 4 points in terms of the what can be done to stabilize prices. And I think it's very important that we have the price monitoring system. Information is critical as one point. And this is what Aaron has alluded to. A second point is that we need to ensure that we have price monitoring and the enforcement of regulations against price gouging, if that is determined to be the case. And this requires the kind of ad hoc committees that have been formed under the Ministry of Economy and Finance and their special activities for COVID-19. The fourth one I'd suggest is that we, as also mentioned just earlier, is to protect supply chains, to ensure that the private sector finds ways to operate safely during COVID-19, because it's their operations, their competition that will keep prices down. So if we can maintain that competition, that's one of the most important things we can do. Thank you very much, Charya.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rojal. So next, may I turn this question to Excellency Potswandi. Excuse me, Excellency, are you here?
Yeah. Not related to the question that the stabilizer market, I just would like to just talk a little bit between demand and supply. So before talking about demand and supply of the food in market, we can say a little bit about the right now the government start to reopen market, and I think from 24 May just this message this morning, and I think that even open market, but the government still have a strict condition for the seller and also the people who go to market have to follow the principle 3 do not do and 3 prevention. That is also the point that still faced we can stabilize to the food stabilization. So second is I would like to talk about the demand and supply. Now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, some people, no, I'm not talking about a big company who produce or grow the food, but I just talking about the people who grow the food for the market, but during the COVID-19 pandemic, they cannot find the market, and some food, some agricultural product is stuck and thrown away. So right now, still that the people still don't want to grow the food agricultural product. Even they don't have to make sure that the market is for the agricultural product is on the so this is also the based on the demand and also a market for the agricultural product. So this is we can talking about a little bit about the agriculture people can form as association, because sometimes they produce but not no market, and also some market also can find the agriculture product to sell in the market. So as I already heard that some agriculture people, they join together as association and have a contract with the market, and they have a contract to produce, to grow agriculture product and provide as from the market. So this is also the good point that have the provide the agreement between the demand and supply.
Thank you, Excellency, for your nice answer. So next, please turn the question to Mr. Arunbai.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not sure I have too much to add on top of what the Excellencies and other contributors have already added. I might say, just from the supply side, in terms of prices, just to continue promoting the free movement of commodities in Cambodia, promoting market efficiencies. I mean, these things are already ongoing. Obviously, COVID has had some impact on that, but I think overall the trajectory on that course is very positive. Just general development as well, improving transportation networks, making it easier for farmers to get their supplies to the market. Will all benefit. Another thing that I would say is, we've had recently some conversations with MISTI, Ministry of Innovation and Technology, and we know that they are supporting small and medium enterprises, especially in the area of food innovation, and making sure that the government and partners are supporting small and medium food enterprises to make this will also drive down, I think, prices in the long run, and also spur innovation in this sector. And I think that can only be a good thing as well. And I guess from the demand side, continue to champion these efforts that the Royal Government of Cambodia has already undertaken over the last year in terms of supporting households in times of stress, making sure that we are targeting those supports efficiently and effectively. And based on what I know from the different government agencies that are working on that, that seems to be a high priority to make sure that those resources are being optimally delivered. So I think from the demand side, that will also help. So yeah, just a few thoughts from my side. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Arunbhai, and all the speakers. So another interesting question from our Facebook audience. I'm not sure that he's still watching on our program or not, but I please pick up this question from the Facebook. His name is Mr. Resmaidana Duong. His question is about food is important for human beings. Million garment workers consume it every day. And please clarify more on food safety and how consumer could differentiate between organic food and chemical one. I think this is maybe a good discussion among all the speakers. May I start this question from Dr. Indrozal? So I may repeat this question again. So food is important for human beings. Million garment workers consume it every day. And please clarify more on food safety and how consumer could differentiate between organic food and chemical one.
Yeah, that is a good question, and we have a big concern for food safety in Cambodia, but mostly that concern is developed around moving forwards, because we need to ensure that the food we have for domestic consumption in Cambodia is safe for the Cambodian population. And as Dr. Kim Long pointed out, it's so closely related to food security and nutrition that we need to take food safety into account at all levels. And food safety improvements can only come through collaboration across several ministries. In fact, there are 6 ministries directly involved. And a food safety law, which is under consideration at present, and we can expect to be passed in the near future, will help to ensure that each ministry has its area of responsibility and an overarching coordination mechanism to guide food safety right through the food chain. This will be a good step for Cambodia, for the domestic consumers, and for exports, because we need to look at our role of Cambodia in ASEAN. And although people are very keen to see local produce available for local consumption, the export industries are very important to us as well, and food safety an essential component. When it comes to identifying which food is safe or which is organic and which is not, we are still at a very early stage of this in Cambodia. It is expensive to get certification to international standards for organic produce. But in some cases, Cambodian producers and processors, traders, have been able to do this. And there are good examples for the premium jasmine rice and export to Europe and other countries. The challenge for us is that for meeting those standards, we have to meet the standards of the country we are exporting to. It's not something we establish ourselves. For Cambodia and for an early stage, there are some mechanisms like participatory guarantee systems that the farmers, processors and traders can work together to vouch for their own practices. And they work with consumers, allowing access to see how things are produced, processed and traded, and to understand that these are chemical free. So we need to be on the lookout for the type of shops, the market stalls or the supermarkets that are placing products on the shelves and certifying them in their own way as being organic. And the key to this is our trust. Whether you can trust that trader, that shop owner, or that supermarket, that they will protect their brand and their interest. But for Cambodia, let's say that the participatory guarantee system is a good start, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries is working towards a national standard, and that this is an important next step to take. Over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosa. So I think maybe we can take one more round. So Excellency Poitsuwandi.
Thank you. I just would like to say that I'm not especially on the separate between organic food, food and non-organic organic food, but I can provide the food poverty, that one part of this question. So I'm not sure that the question is related to the food providing or related to the poverty calculation. If we're talking about the poverty calculation, we have when we calculate the poverty rate, we have to identify poverty line. And poverty line, we will include food and non-food. So poverty line will include food and poverty and non-food. And if we're talking about food poverty, that means the line is the people who have the income or expenditure cannot even spend for buy a food for daily living. So not talking about non-food, even food they cannot buy for daily living. So that the people who are under the food poverty line. So we can say again, say another word is extreme poverty. It's a food poverty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Excellency. So I may turn this one to Mr. Arunwai. Please, Mr. Arunwai.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, again, it's a good question. I'll try to add what I can. I mean, I think, yeah, this issue of food safety is complex in Cambodia. A couple of things stand out. I mean, it's a very good question. I think there is sometimes some limited awareness among consumers on food safety issues, and you know, we need to work on increasing that demand around these food safety issues. The point as well that Ian has pointed out around the regulatory environment. Yeah, I think at the moment it's, as I understand, it's a bit of a patchwork. It's good news that this law perhaps is forthcoming, but at the moment I think it's a series of sub-decrees and prakas, and as well the enforcement is spread across, I think, a couple of different line ministries, MAF as well as others. So I think, yeah, the point would be, yeah, to promote a holistic approach that gets engagement from all stakeholders, and yeah, I think it requires scaling up food safety efforts and to, as I said, generating demand for safe food. So looking at new business models, new markets, and supporting the regulatory environment. And that's not something that happens overnight, but I think trying to eliminate some of the redundancy and streamline some of the regulatory environment will probably go a long way in addressing a lot of these issues around food safety. Because yeah, it's actually three things, as Ian has pointed out. It's exports, it's also imports, and then the final piece is food products produced locally and sold on the domestic market. So yeah, I think that's all I would have to say on that, in addition to what the other good comments have already been. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Ronrai. So next, let's turn this question to Dr. Cheng Kum Long. Dr. Cheng Kum Long, maybe you unmute.
Thank you. I think Dr. Russell, Aaron, and His Excellencies Wandi have mentioned a lot already, almost everything about food safety and standards. And I would like to add one point from the producer side, that is from farmers and other agricultural producer side. I think they have to change the mindset in terms of practicing more ethically, and also they have to be aware of the needs of society, of the buyers. Buyers have been demanding more higher quality agricultural produce, and in recent years, as living standard of Cambodian people have improved, and not only by the Cambodian people, but also the expats, international expats working in Cambodia, living in Cambodia. For the domestic consumptions, the level of food safety and standards have, been demanded, a higher level standard of that. In connection to this, Dr. Russell has, and I think Aaron has mentioned about the potential for Cambodians' product to be exported to international markets. And Cambodia have a vast potential in terms of agricultural, fertile agricultural land, and by the Cambodian government, investment by private investors in making use of those fertile agricultural land and the water resource networks. I say water network. Water irrigation system have not been up to the standard. It has not reached to the level that agricultural productivity and efficiency can be maintained at the moment, and that is the potential, that is the room. And to improve food safety, it has to involve, all those, eclectic, holistic, framework of agricultural modernization, of the upgrading the production system. The storage is another thing. The storage, cooling system, warehouse storage, transportation system, all of those that maintain and ensure the quality. For example, a vegetable, a type of vegetable that has been produced in Battambang province, which take about 6 hours from here, and then without proper packaging, without proper cooling systems, when it arrives in Phnom Penh markets in Phnom Penh, those vegetables have withered, and then they lost the nutrition, the nutritious value. They lost the economic value in itself. This is the food loss and the loss to the society in terms of food safety. And food safety, let me state again, the mindset of the people, the producer have to change. They change and then look at other countries in the Mekong region, in ASEAN, before we look outside. And then what can Cambodian farmers through associations, through contract farming, can work together. Yeah, and I think this is what I would like to add, and in addition to what our panelists have mentioned very well, all of those. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Chen Kim-long, and thank you so much, all honorable speaker. Yes, today we seem to have very fruitful discussion, and I think maybe we're going to close our program soon. Actually, we have several questions going to ask, but we are behind the schedule almost 20 minutes already, and I'm sure that another speaker maybe have another schedule the same. So, by the way, before we are going to close the program, may I ask all the speakers here to join the group photo, please? Okay. So I will count to 5, and our admin will be arranged for that. So make your smiley face. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Thank you for nice cooperation. So, okay, Excellency, honorable speaker, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So, to end our program, please allow me to express my gratitude to all honorable speakers for spending your valued time with us today, and all the audience who follow our program till the end. And please stay tuned for the next program on equity in access to education that we're going to have on the 3rd week of June 2021. Thank you so much, Excellency and honorable speaker. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, looking forward to meeting you in person.
Yes.
Dr. Russell, Aaron, and His Excellency.